Hi guys, welcome to a new episode of LJ Eats. Welcome to my channel if you've not seen any of my videos. Otherwise, thanks for watching again. And after the video, please comment, like, subscribe and share this video with any of your friends. This is a new video, a different concept to my usual visiting restaurants. It's actually to do with a visit I did recently to Italy and just showing you all the different food places I went to on the road trip that I did across Italy with my family. We went to Rome, Naples, Florence, Tuscany and Venice, and trips in Pisa and Lucca are on the way, and I want to show you all the different food places that I checked out along the way. So the first place that we went to was Rome, and in Rome there was a lot of different trattorias within the center of the city that we visited. But one of the main things that we tried out was, of course, the gelato. Gelato for me is a bit of a sore point because I'm lactose intolerant, so I tried as much of the gelato as I could. But the good thing about Italy now, since I've visited in the past, is that they have a lot of dairy-free options in the gelato shops. So that was a bonus for me, that I didn't have to just miss out on the gelatos when everyone else was having it. One of the first gelato shops that we went to in Rome was this shop called Della Palma in the center of the city, and in there they had 150 different flavors of gelato, including a section of about 10 different non-dairy options, soy milk options, which was great for me. So I obviously tried the chocolate one out of those and had a little bite from what everyone else had in terms of gelato, and can say it was good. I don't think you'd find a really bad gelato shop in Italy, but this one was very good and it's well renowned there. The only thing I'd say about the soy option is that it's not as creamy as you'd get with the normal gelato, but that's the price you have to pay if you're lactose intolerant like me. The other gelato shop that we went to was a bit more high-end. It was called Venchi, and they do artisanal produce and both ice cream and also chocolates, and they've been around for a number of years. I'll put the locations for all these shops in the description box below, so you can check out where they are if you're ever in Rome and you're interested to try them. The ice cream here at Venchi was a bit more expensive than the Della Panna, but the quality was very good again, and they had a selection of different items that you could get, but not the 150 that were on offer. So I'd say the selection is lower here, but the quality was a bit higher than it was in Della Panna. I didn't take a video of all the different food that we had in Rome, but some of our favorites were the Montepulciano and some of the seafood raviolis that we got there. The best meal that we had actually in Rome was at a Michelin star restaurant just about 100 to 150 yards away from the Colosseum. The restaurant was called Aroma, and it's on the top floor of the Palazzo Manfredi, which, like I said, is right next to the Colosseum. And the main selling point, to be honest, is the view from the terrace when you sit there, which overlooks the Colosseum, and you won't get a better view or setting from there. And obviously the bonus point is that the food is also really good, as you would expect from a Michelin star restaurant. We went there for lunch after doing a morning tour at the Colosseum, so combining the two in one day, and I can say I wasn't disappointed. Obviously, for the location and the kind of food you get, the price is quite steep, but when you're on holiday, why not? We went for the 7-course tasting menu. On the day that we went, we sat on the terrace overlooking the Colosseum but they do also have an indoor terrace as well if you feel like you want to sit indoors, but I definitely recommend booking early and getting the view from the terrace. We tried the 7 courses. Of the courses that we had, they had some like a tempura prawn where the batter was perfectly fried on the outside and the prawn very juicy on the inside. We had an aubergine dish. We had a pork dish, which was probably one of the best dishes that we had. Crispy on the crackling part on the outside and very moist and tender on the inside. There was some ice cream with coconut. We had Verdicchio white wine, For dessert, they had a variety of different desserts that we had, and they also provided a fruit platter, which was huge, as you can see from the video. Another good dish was a pasta dish that they did, that you can see in the video, quite a decent portion. And another dish they did was this two fish, which was grilled, and both white meat, along with like a spraying of black squid ink, which was really delicious and gave an extra flavor to the meat. All in all, like, I can definitely recommend it. I've been to better restaurants in the past before, but as an overall service, in terms of the location, the food and everything, it was definitely really good, and I can definitely recommend it. So apart from the restaurants in Rome that we visited and any outside shops that we popped into, we also went one morning to the Campo de Fiori, which is a market that's been open since 1869 in Rome, so a very long time, and it's quite a historic district within the city itself. The market's open every morning apart from Sundays, and it's an eclectic mix of mainly food stores, but also some textile stores as well, where you can buy other items. But mainly focusing on the food, they sell different olive oils, different alcoholic items, limoncello, etc. They also sell a huge variety of dry goods. The selection of pastas there was outstanding, and they have a lot of deals you can do in terms of buying 3 packets for 10 euros or cheaper than that, and special pastas like we bought some garlic infused pasta, some squid ink pasta, special shaped pasta, all kinds of varieties. And to be honest, I would have bought more. I deliberately went to Italy with quite an empty case, so I could bring back a lot of the food and wines back from the country. Yeah, apart from the pastas and the dry goods, they were selling also porcini mushrooms. They were selling like pre-packed mixes for if you wanted to make your own pasta sauce. So for example, they'd have ready-made mix of all the different spices and herbs and chili, everything in one, so then you could easily put it in the pot and just make your own sauce if you don't have time to measure all the different elements. So it's not fully going to the supermarket style of buying it in a jar, but just saving time in that all the spices are already mixed for you to make it fresh at home. There's also a lot of pastry shops and bakeries around the city, where you can go in and very European style, a bit like France, that you can just pop in and just pick up a small pastry in the morning, whatever time of day, to be honest. But I think the traditional way is to go in the morning and grab yourself a small espresso to go with it, and that's really their breakfast. The final thing in Rome that I saw a lot of was these alcohol shops, but the main thing that I was looking for in these shops was limoncello, and they usually had a little room with limoncello with all the different types of bottles that you could find different shapes. Obviously the tourist stuff, which is like the shape of the country of Italy, like the boot shape, and anything else, rude ones, whatever you could think of. Limoncello, if you don't know, it's a lemon drink where lemon is put into, usually the lemon peel actually is put into alcohol, and it's meant to be an aperitif after dinner to help with digestion of your food, and it's actually quite nice. You usually would have just like a shot size amount of it after your dinner, and it's a tradition within Italy, well known. I didn't actually buy the traditional lemon, but they have special flavors actually, and a variety of different flavors, which is meant to have the same idea as limoncello. It's made in the same way, but they have specific flavors. So they have a chocolate one, they have peach, they have nocciola, which is made from hazelnuts, and all kind of variety of different flavors if people don't like that lemon taste and that really alcoholic taste of the limoncello. after leaving Rome, we drove down to Naples, which was actually one of my favorite cities within this trip. And even though it was one of my favorite cities, I can say it was one of the biggest disappointments in terms of food. I was expecting a lot more of the food there, because I'd heard a lot about especially the pizza that was coming from and originated in Naples. The food, the only way to describe it is quite basic. Naples is in one of the poorer areas of Italy, so I think a lot of the food was mainly basic, a lot of pasta, very just tomato, not too much meat, not too much additional flavor, and that's what I think disappointed me a little bit in terms of flavor. I can't fault the ingredients that they used. A lot of the stuff is locally produced, but in terms of the amalgamation of the flavors within a dish, it was very basic, and it wasn't that exciting for me when I compare it to other dishes I've had elsewhere. For me, like I said, the pizza was a big disappointment, because I was expecting it to be much better, knowing that Naples was the founding place of the pizza. What I would say is that if you just stick to the basic pizza, the margherita, then yeah, you won't go wrong. The bread, the cheese, the tomato, it's all locally produced and tastes really good. But as soon as you go on to more complicated pizzas, it doesn't taste as good. And yeah, I've tried much better pizzas in the rest of Italy, so I say don't believe the hype about Napoli in terms of pizza. There were a lot of meals that were quite average, which were saved by the wine, which was really good. I'll share a story with you about when we went to this pizza place. It's called Sorbillo, probably about 150 meters from our hotel, but had been recommended to us by a local guy. And we went there one evening and the place was packed. You had to wait for 1 hour for a table, so we decided not to that day, but then go back the next day. And obviously, thinking it was so good, we had a really high expectation of what to expect from the restaurant. But I went there the next day and I ordered what I thought was the Napoli pizza, which is the one which is again very basic, margherita, but essentially with just anchovies on top. And in Naples, the two originating pizzas are the margherita and the Napoli. So I thought, I can't go wrong if I get the traditional pizza of Naples. They can't get that wrong. But when it arrived at my table, I was shocked, and you can see from the picture in the video. It was a pizza without any tomatoes. The menu is all in Italian, by the way, so I couldn't tell that this was not the original Napoli pizza. It was in fact a specialist pizza that they created within the restaurant that was completely unrelated to the Napoli pizza, the Napolitana pizza that I was expecting. It came and it was bread, cheese, no tomato, and then just breadcrumbs on top of the pizza. And I can honestly tell you, it was one of the worst things I've ever eaten in my life. And I'm someone who, even if the food is bad, I'll still make sure I finish it. This I could not stomach. I probably ate about half the pizza and then I had to just give up. So that was a really big disappointment for me. So if you're in Naples, only the margherita or the Napoli pizza, and make sure it's the correct one. However, in Napoli, I would say they do have a lot of good little stores dotted around in the middle of the city, in the narrow winding roads of Naples. And something they do really well is actually fried food, especially fried seafood, because it is a port city, so they do have an abundance of seafood. There was one place that we just by a coincidence found when we were walking around the streets of Naples. It was called Cuoppo. Once again, I'll put the location in the description box below, so if you're in Naples you can find this place. And it's basically a very small setup, very small shop, small entrance way, and they have a few tables dotted around outside, maybe 5 or 6 tables just outside in the middle of the alley street. But this food is actually really not for eating and sitting down. It's served in a paper cone, and you just get like a small stick that you can pick the stuff out of the cone and start eating it. And it's fried food, and it was delicious. There was prawns, octopus, little white bait items, and this was just one of the dishes. They also had maybe about 10 different options of the mix of seafood or even some meat that you could get within your fried cone of goodness. That's all I can explain. Even inside of the seafood one that I had, they had some small like bread balls, really light dough balls actually, and that kind of, I don't know, it sucked up the grease from the rest of the items, and then I don't know, it just tasted really good with that taste that had flowed down into the bottom and soaked into that dough ball, which made it moist but with that flavour of the frying and the oil and the seafood mixed into one. We also tried some of the rice balls, which were also really good, but definitely the highlight of this place is just the fried food. So if you're in there, just pick it up and just eat it on the go. I think that's the best way to go about it. We also tried the arancini, the rice balls, and they were also really good, very moist and tender inside, and a good portion for the price. Napoli, in comparison with other cities that we went to, at least the food was a bit more cheap. Again, like I said, it was Naples is in a poorer region of Italy, and people don't earn as much, and also it's not as big a tourist place as a lot of these other cities that we visited, so the price of eating is still not cheap, but it's more affordable than in some of these other cities, especially if you're going to a tourist place. So after Naples, we headed up to Montepulciano, which is a very small town within the Tuscany region in the province of Siena, and we were actually basing there because my cousin was getting married, which was the purpose of this whole trip, in a nearby town called Pienza. The location is stunning in this area, and I can't recommend it to you enough. We stayed in a little hotel called Corte del Cavalierino, which is agriturismo. It's an environmentally friendly resort with a few villas on site, and it's literally only accessible by a dirt road. So somewhere to definitely check out if you want a more relaxing holiday, and the scenery is stunning. It's actually more of my favorite part of Italy rather than going to some of the cities. And while we're in Montepulciano, the resort that we were staying on, they actually have their own vineyard. So the brand they have is called Antico Colle, and they distribute their wine all across the world. And as part of their hospitality on the resort, they also allow a free wine tasting. So we got to try out a selection of 5 of their wines, and also their grappa and their olive oil. So we sat down with the lady who works there. It's actually family owned. The daughter Julia actually gave us a rundown of all the wines that they produce there, and I actually picked up a couple that I brought home with me, which were the ones that I particularly liked. They had one white wine. Again, like I said, they also make their own oil from the olives on their estate as well, which we tried on some bread that they provided, and which was again also really tasty. And they also make a grappa, which we had a shot of afterwards as well, from the skin of the grapes that they use for the wine, so they don't waste any of the products, which kind of fits into the idea of this agriturismo and the environmentally friendly part of the overall business. So definitely somewhere I'd recommend to go to, and yeah, it's one of my favorite places that we visited. At the wedding that we went to for my cousin, which was in Pienza at a resort called Borgo Sant'Ambrogio, they had the usual wedding food, but the best part was actually in the bit before the formal dinner, where they were serving a load of the different cold cuts that you get in Italy, mainly the hams, the Palma hams, the bresaola, everything you could think of was there. And also this pecorino that I said before was produced within the area, and they had all the different varieties of the pecorino. I could have just continued eating it all day. They also had a station for tempura, but vegetable tempura, which was lightly battered and fried as well, which was perfect. Perfect for the day. So after going to Montepulciano in Tuscany, we took the short drive and went to Florence, which is obviously a well-renowned city in Italy. In Florence, one of the main things I wanted to do was to go to the Mercato Centrale, which is the main food market within the city, and it's actually surrounded also by a shopping market where they have a lot of leather goods, which are also a speciality of Florence. Within the Mercato Centrale, which is a very old historical market building, it has the same feel as the Hall de Lyon in Lyon, which I went to back in 2016. If you're not sure what it is, Google it. I'll put a link in the description below and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's a market which has a lot of different stalls inside it of fresh produce, and that usually serve all the local restaurants around it. And they also have a second level where you can sit and have lunch basically. And the market is open from 8 to 12 in the morning for like the main stores like the fishmongers, the butchers, all that kind of stuff. That the good produce obviously usually goes in the morning, but they also have a variety of other shops within inside that are selling everything you could think of. Dried goods like they had in the Campo de Fiori, and they had a lot of porcini mushrooms, which are also quite local to the area. Dried porcini, and you can buy it by the kilo in large amounts. They had stores which were selling these truffle oils, truffle pestos, all different kinds of pastas. Something I bought there was the large wedge of Parmigiano Reggiano, which is actually my favorite cheese to go with pasta. It has that nutty texture with it. And they sell everything you can think you might relate to Italian cuisine. Like I said, I bought the cheese. I didn't buy it from a particular cheese stand, but they also had stands which just had aisles of different cheeses that you could think of: sheep's cheese, goat's cheese, normal cheese as you'd think you'd call it. The butchers were selling all kinds of items: rabbit, chicken, beef, salami hanging from the ceiling. They also had pasta that had been freshly made and was ready to put in boiling water, ravioli that had been folded, and then you could just easily stick it in water to eat it. They had deli stations. They had one area where my friends Florence and Arsi, they joined us in Florence because they were also in Italy for a wedding, so they came along to meet us in Florence, and they bought these piadini sandwiches at one of these deli stations and tried a bit, and it was delicious. You can also buy alcohol there as well, so I had a birra Moretti whilst we were walking around, which is like one of the local beers there, and it's something that I am a big fan of in Italy, the birra Moretti. You can buy the can or the bottle, you can buy it in the restaurants whenever you're eating.
What is that one?
Birra Moretti. This is the one we've been drinking a lot.
And what time is it?
It is 12:05, so it's beer o'clock. The market is actually a 19th century building, and it's located in the San Lorenzo neighborhood, and it's easily walking distance from Il Duomo, or the main center of Florence, if you are looking to walk around. And it's probably about half a kilometer from the train station, so easily accessible if you want to go visit. Yeah, they had a sandwich at the deli made of the porchetta, which is something you wouldn't find in many other countries, but the porchetta is delicious and something I wish I could have more regularly. Obviously probably not the healthiest thing to eat, but extremely tasty. They also had bakery shops as well, which were selling every kind of bread you can think of, including my favorite ciabatta. But they also had these little pastries you could buy, the biscotti in all different flavors: pistachio, chocolate, hazelnut, everything you can think of. And yeah, like I said, if you're a foodie, this is the place you want to go visit if you want to pick up some produce and even try out some of the food whilst you're there. So yeah, Mercato Centrale in Florence, definitely go check it out. In Florence as well, I tried out a few of the local restaurants, and actually we kind of stumbled onto a bit of a hidden gem in Florence. It was a small, really small deli shop, really close to the Ponte Vecchio. We were just looking for somewhere to eat and just having a quick look on TripAdvisor to see, oh, is there anything nearby to where we are, because it started to rain and we wanted somewhere to sit and have a bit of a bite to eat. And luckily we made a really good choice and found this place called Alimentari Uffizi. And the shop itself, it must have had only about 3 tables inside. They had to put some together for us to sit down, and there was just one guy who was the owner who would do everything, make all the food. But everything in there was locally produced and tastes incredible. It was mainly cold food, it's not cooked food, so they had like a selection of different hams, cheeses, fresh olives, wine, bread. Everything is freshly made and locally sourced, and for them it's just all about the produce. It's nothing fancy about the location or anything like that. In fact, the food is served on paper plates, the wine is served in plastic cups, but that shouldn't detract you from visiting. It's just a great place to go try out food. We tried out the platter. We just asked the guy what would he recommend, and he just said, okay, let me do it, and came up with this selection of meat plate with bread and cheese and fresh olives, and then he just gave us some of his house wine as well, and it worked out as, for the whole thing, not expensive at all. The meat that was served was extremely thinly sliced and kind of melted in your mouth, and the best thing was the lardo. If you don't know what the lardo is, it's like pork belly or bacon, but essentially it's just pure fat. But if it's really thinly sliced, it tastes incredible and it just melts in your mouth. So the lardo was definitely my favorite thing within Alimentari Uffizi, but also the Parma ham, the pecorino, the buffalo mozzarella. There was nothing I could really fault there. So for me, that place was a 10 out of 10, just because of the produce itself and also the friendliness of the owner. He was really interested in where we'd come from, explaining about his produce, and he was really passionate about it, and just really welcome him. It was like you were eating in someone's home. So if you're in Florence, definitely I'd recommend to check this place out, especially since it's located in such a good place, just down a back alley, so you would never see it otherwise. So I'll put the location in the description below again, just so you can find out where it is, so you can go visit whenever you're in Florence. The final place that I'm going to talk to you about is also in Florence. I'm going to talk to you about the Trattoria Antico Fattore, which is also nearby the Alimentari Uffizi, about 50 yards down the road. And there's a great place to have dinner. I'd recommend booking in advance. They only open from about 7 p.m. We got there quite early, but by the time that we'd left, the place was packed out, and mainly with local people, which signifies to me that it's very popular with locals. And having tasted the food myself, it was definitely one of the best restaurants we sat at in Italy. Their place is renowned for beef. So if you're into steaks, anything like that, then this is the place for you to go. But they also serve really good other dishes, seafood, chicken, everything that I tried, whatever everyone else in the party had to eat there as well, and all the dishes were really good. Good selection of wine as well, but for me, if you like beef, get the beef, because that's their speciality. I shared with 2 other people, and we bought a 2 kilogram T-bone steak, and it was probably about this size. You can see from the video, it came on a sizzling platter, and the guy came out and just sliced it out, and it was cooked medium rare, and the meat was really good, incredible. Afterwards I was in a little bit of a food coma, but we made it through and got through all the meat there. There was no time really for any any other items along with it, but all I can say is if you're in Florence and you like steak, go check out this restaurant, and the T-bone is their speciality. So it's not necessarily the cheapest thing to buy, but if you're from Dubai and you're used to buying steaks here, then it's still cheaper and probably the quality is better. So
Lawrence has trained me well. How do you feel?
Second win. Two words, second win.
Two words, second win.
Yeah, that was good.
Lawrence doesn't feel too good. regretting this decision.
Trattoria and Cuoppo, if you're looking for somewhere to eat a steak in Florence. Again, I'll put the address in the description below and you can check it out. Thanks for watching this episode of LJ Eats. Definitely if you're a foodie, you have to go to Italy and try out all the food, especially try out stuff that is locally produced in the area that you're at, because that will be the best tasting food that you will find. Try to avoid any tourist traps. If they're selling like an English or American breakfast in there, or if it's in the main square and the prices are overhyped, then usually the food is going to be average and you'll be paying much too much for what you're getting. I suggest to do some research beforehand and check out some of the places that I've recommended in this video. Otherwise, please like, share, comment, hit the subscribe button and press the bell for the notifications of whenever I release a new video, so you can get the first scoop on what I've just uploaded. Check out the videos here or here to see the other content on my channel and any of the other episodes of LJ Eats, and see you next time. Thanks for watching.